Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, one of the most consequential events of last week uh, slid by completely under the radar, but it may be a very important. The New York Times suffered a significant defeat in, of all places, a New York state court. So this wasn't in Alabama, wasn't in Mississippi. This was in a New York state court. The case involved Project Veritas, that many viewers will remember, practices publishing surreptitiously recorded videos of important people making all sorts of indiscreet admissions.
Telling the truth.
Yeah, exactly, the truth, basically. I mean, the most famous of which was the one with Planned Parenthood, where various Planned Parenthood officials were admitting cheerfully, over a lunch or a drink, that they were practicing the sale of fetus parts. It was horrifying and there was an outrage and so on, but no one really disputed the truth of what Project Veritas showed. And Project Veritas has done a number of those things. Recently, it had some big executive on Facebook, again, cheerfully admitting Facebook's role in securing Biden's victory in the.
And I think there was the guy, I think it was a Google ad that was on when, he was saying again, surreptitiously over a beer that, these social networks need to be break up because they're they're monopolistic.
That's right. And there've been various others. Now, what happened was about a year or so ago, Project Veritas had another one of these videos, which concerned ballot harvesting, something we learned a little bit about in the last election, ballot harvesting on behalf of Ilhan Omar, the representative from Minnesota. And this was ferociously attacked in the New York Times. They wrote article after article about this. And they used such terms as the video was deceptive, the video is disinformation, there's no evidence in the video.
Coordinated campaign.
Right, exactly. And Project Veritas sued the New York Times. New York Times, as is its wont, immediately goes into high dudgeon and, First Amendment, New York Times versus Sullivan, and sought the dismissal of Project Veritas's suit. The New York Times versus Sullivan. This is a famous case, and we talked about it recently. It's a case in 1964. New York Times actually published false information about
knowingly.
Yeah, about an official in Alabama, and whereas the case had won in the Alabama state court, including the Alabama Supreme Court, because basically New York Times had slandered an Alabama official. The U.S. Supreme Court had overturned the Alabama court's rulings and ruled in favor of the New York Times, because it says yes, a media outlet can publish false information, slanderous information, information that destroys people's reputations, but as long as they are honest mistakes, as long as it's not motivated by malice, as long as it's not motivated by reckless disregard of the facts, then the media outlet is free to do it and is protected by the First Amendment. And so the New York Times won this case. And that has been the defining principle of the media since 1964. So what happened here again? New York Times said, "Oh yeah, this is that this is all ridiculous. We're protected by the First Amendment and so on." And the judge, again, New York State judge, was unimpressed. He said, "Well, you've got things here you're saying it's deceptive. You're calling it disinformation. Well, what is the basis of saying that?" And the New York Times said, "Well, this is just opinion. Reporters, they're entitled to put in opinions into their news stories." To which the judge said, "Well, okay, if you're going to put in opinions in your news stories, you need to be clear to the readers that these are reporters' opinions. So these are facts, these are opinions. You can't just simply insert opinions in facts and then leave the reader
or allowing facts and opinion to have equal
right, exactly.
weight.
But the important thing is that readers are confused because they don't know which is fact and which is opinion. So when they say something like Donald Trump lied about this and this and this, then that's a reporter's opinion. Nonetheless, the New York Times is presenting it as fact, and so that's where the problem is. So the ruling means said that the case is not dismissed, and it's going to go forwards to discovery. In other words, the judge said that Project Veritas has presented at least a prima facie case that the New York Times was motivated by malice, and that it had set out to destroy the reputation of Project Veritas out of malice. There was no question of just an honest mistake here, and at least Project Veritas will now have a chance to make its case, which means that it goes towards discovery. Discovery is always a very embarrassing for the media, because that means they can go through the emails and all sorts of meetings, telephone calls, and so on. And who knows what you're going to find when you get into the emails, reporters, saying, hey, we've got to really screw over X. So this was a decisive defeat for the New York Times. And it follows on from last year's defeat when they again did the same thing. They tried to dismiss Sarah Palin's suit against the Times, because Sarah Palin they had smeared Sarah Palin, saying that she was somehow responsible for a mass shooting in Arizona which involved Gabby Giffords, the congressional representative. They said this with an outrageous statement. Palin sued. The Times again sought dismissal, but in fact, the judges ruled that Palin's suit against the Times can go ahead. So that's a very significant thing. I mean, it's media outlet, powerful media organizations have been hiding behind the First Amendment for a long time, and it's rather nice that the courts are getting a little fed up with it. Okay, Peter, what was your take?
Well, particularly since when Trump came into the White House, there was an open consensus that journalists would have to play a different role, not just informing the public, but showing their absolute outrage that he was president of the United States. Everyone was really quite open about it. Right. And as a matter of fact, it turned into who could outdo the other, in their malice. And with this discovery process, as you said, it's going to be very embarrassing, because we're going to see malice from the get-go. Exactly. I mean, why would they do the story in the first place? Malice, okay? Exactly. And Project Veritas, you can criticize it. There are those that claim that they edit films in a certain way. I'm willing to accept that as a possible criticism. But I've seen enough of the Veritas videos to believe that they have really very good journalistic integrity. They want to get their message out, and if they screw up, people are going to find out about it and will discredit them. So I have a good opinion of them. Obviously, liberals hate Veritas, very, very much. But you and I have lamented ever since we started this channel that the courts seem so unwilling to step in and clarify basic constitutional rights, and particularly in the area of the media. So this is quite heartening, because they're going to say, you're going to have to show us, how you make the sausage, okay? And this will be a very important test and example for the rest of the media, because we can apply this to all I can't even imagine the number of stories, reports made about the Russiagate hoax, okay? how did they come to their opinions? Okay. And I would say it was all about malice and capital letters and underlines. So it's very important that the paper of record be the first to have to go through this, because just maybe something will be learned from this, because media has been so damaged over the last few years. It may be just irreparable because of the lack of trust and faith people have in the media right now. But I am very, very glad. And I think this is a really good case, because this is a case of people doing investigative journalism, which has virtually disappeared from our media landscape. And it's up against the paper of record. So this is the best possible mix you can have come colliding together. And from a state, a court in New York, that's what floors me. Okay.
No, that's exactly right. And there were a couple of other aspects to the case which are interesting. In other words, this New York State judge, he really hit the Times, because first of all, the New York Times said that that Project Veritas is beyond libel. Because it has such a lousy reputation. And so the New York Times came up with a list of, I don't know, 25 media outlets, all of whom had said bad things about Veritas. And the judge said, hey, truth is not established by opinion polling. I mean, I don't care how many places you're going to cite, that doesn't prove anything. I mean, the issue is this particular case was that whether you had acted with malice against Project Veritas in this case. And then the other thing was that the so-called anti-SLAPP statutes, which this kind of an esoteric thing, whereby powerful organizations used to sue smaller, weaker organizations. Essentially, these were frivolous lawsuits, but they could drive this smaller organizations out of business because they couldn't afford the attorney fees.
And that's called lawfare.
Right,
lawfare.
Exactly. That's it. And so the whole point of these anti-SLAPP suits was saying that if it is a frivolous suit, if a powerful organization is bringing a frivolous suit, then this small organization can go and say, you pay us our attorney fees. In other words, you brought this frivolous case. It's now been dismissed. Now reimburse us our attorney fees. But the New York Times did this against Project Veritas. It demanded attorney fees from Project Veritas, and the judge really got annoyed by this. Was saying, "Well, this wasn't what these anti-SLAPP statutes are supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be a protection for powerful organizations when they try to bully, little organizations. So there's no comparison between Project Veritas on the one hand, New York Times on the other, and the New York Times is demanding that its attorney fees be paid for.
Yeah, talk about liberal privilege. Okay,
right, exactly.
Yeah, and of course, the New York Times citing these other news organization depicting the reliability or indicating the reliability of Project Veritas. Well, that's a very interesting jury pool, isn't it? I mean, it's so subjective. Okay, I mean, you find 25 enemies of Veritas, and then you say, here, this is consensus in the media. It's not true at all. I mean, what these people, they're getting so damn lazy because of their stupidity.
Right.
These slapdown laws, that it was obviously to protect small people that have limited resources. Exactly. I hope that's going to apply to the people on trial for the Capitol Hill riot.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. I mean, it is a racket. I mean, the legal profession is a racket. You just simply can drive your enemies into the ground because you have deep pockets. They don't. And you know that, and therefore you can use the legal system essentially to screw them over, because sooner or later they're going to have to give up because they just don't have the resources to fight the case.
This is on the tail end of I think it was correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in the news cycle over the last day or so, is that a federal judge came out and with horror looking at how one-sided the media landscape is.
Yeah, that was
and
Lawrence Silberman. Yeah, that's another very interesting case. Exactly.
Very interesting article. Which I thought was interesting is that there's no particular reason why a judge would necessarily do that. I don't know what circumstances did he decide to write that article.
It was a media case, and it was an opinion, and he said that that when the whole point of the First Amendment was to foster debate, to have as many disparate voices in the marketplace of opinion as possible, but that's not what we're getting. So in a way, we got the First Amendment has now become a protection for the complete crushing of alternative opinion, that we got this completely uniform media space.
Yeah, the First Amendment is being used to create a monopoly.
Right, exactly, exactly.
And that's what they're doing. I just thought it was just fascinating. I read parts of his article. It was really, really interesting. And again, and then with this case against Veritas moving forward, I mean, I can't impress enough to everyone. Once that discovery process starts, it's going to be really, really amazing.
It is. And of course, the emails are there. So if New York Times reporters now try to start deleting emails, text messages, and so on, that is a serious business, because now that becomes obstruction of justice. And of course, you can't delete stuff. I mean, unless you use BleachBit, as Hillary Clinton did, whatever you delete.
If you use BleachBit, anyone can figure out that you did do that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, just to give everyone an example about how discovery works. Remember, the Mueller team sent out an indictment against what was it called? The St. Petersburg kids. What was that company called?
Which one? The Internet Research Agency. Yeah.
Okay, Internet Research Agency. And so they had an indictment against them. And so what the research agency did is they hired a lawyer and they went to the United States and they said, okay, because the Mueller people thought they would never challenge it in an American court. Yes. And once they got their representative there, they dropped it because they knew discovery would prove this is just a fishing expedition. You could just say it, okay? And you knew that there wouldn't be a pushback. Well, they were smart enough. I don't even think you have to hire a particularly sophisticated and expensive lawyer, because that's a slam dunk, okay? And they walked away through it in a heartbeat because they know discovery will embarrass you.
That's right. That's right. And the government soon dropped that case. And that really was hilarious, because they made a fundamental blunder. Because they thought, oh, well, we'll just sue this Russian company, and they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to show up. And so, but they said, if you sue a company, they don't have to show up. They can just simply hire a lawyer, and the lawyer can go to court and file motions on its behalf. And basically, they couldn't prove anything. And then the federal government said, we're going to just drop this case. So after all these years of smears against this Internet Research Agency, the hell with it.
All right, I have a challenge for everyone watching this. Please write in the comments if you knew about the dropping of the case in the Mueller report, because it wasn't widely reported, okay? Because the Justice Department, Mueller, working under the purview of the Justice Department, had egg on their face, okay? But do you think Rachel Maddow reported it? Don't think so.
Right. Well, in one other case, I mean, which was also barely reported, was, remember when the DNC sued the Trump campaign and then WikiLeaks over the publication of the emails, and that suit was also thrown out by a federal judge who said WikiLeaks was practicing what we've always said it was practicing. It's practicing journalism. That's protected by the First Amendment. That's, DNC has absolutely no basis for going forward with this case. You can't stop people publishing information that is in the public interest. Again, it was hardly real, because here, actually, a US federal judge said WikiLeaks is a media organization, and he was engaged in proper media work in publishing the DNC emails. Again,
Yes.
barely mentioned in the media.
Yes. So this is an important story. I'm really glad that we're telling our viewers about it, because just like the case that we had in the 1960s, this could set a very interesting precedent moving forward. And it will give people like Project Veritas and other news organizations that are strapped for money, so little investigative journalism going on out there, it may embolden them to strike out more against this monopolistic media that we have here. The arrogance of the New York Times. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yes.
My goodness, they're so above everything. You know, when they are the single most important media institution that has destroyed the trust that the public has in the media. It really stinks to high heaven.
Right. No, absolutely right. Of course, because they seem to think that they enjoy First Amendment protections, but nobody else does. So the New York Times, cheers on when people are thrown off Twitter, thrown off Facebook. Great, thumbs up. I mean, we talked about it, I think, recently, how the New York Times was celebrating that Dominion voting systems was bringing these, billion-dollar lawsuits against Rudy Giuliani and against the various people who had made allegations about Dominion. Great, use your resources to crush views that you don't like. New York Times, they think, well, the First Amendment only applies to us. Well, that's not what the First Amendment says. The First Amendment says it applies to everyone. It means there's a freedom of speech to everyone, not just for, top media organizations. Everyone has freedom of speech.
Yeah, see, the New York Times, they have the attitude that courts will certify their right to determine what the First Amendment means. That's exactly what they're doing.
Right.
They were expecting the court to justify and certify in the public mind that they have their definition of the First Amendment, meaning we're right and we can say everybody else is wrong, in our opinion, all based on opinion.
That's right. That's exactly right. And of course, it is a horrendous practice, which is now accepted in journalism and very much in the New York Times, in which opinion and fact become interchangeable. So that's why whenever you're reading an article in the New York Times, I mean, it's like they're saying, Trump's a liar. Trump is making unsubstantiated assertion. Trump is being deceptive. And then it's stating it as fact, as if this is a proven fact. But it's essentially it's opinion, and think, oh, again, we're protected because it's opinion. But then that's why it's so important that the judge said, well, you basically, if you're going to say that, you're going to make clear this is opinion and this is fact. If you're not making that clear, then you're deliberately deceiving the readers.
So what the New York Times is doing is what they accused Project Veritas of doing.
Right. That's
and this is what it gets down to here. Who would have thought a judge in New York would come out with this? Wow.
Exactly.
Where's the New York Times truthfulness in reporting on the Biden administration? Really?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Did they call out Homeland Security? The border is closed.
Right.
What?
Right.
What?
Yes.
Did they challenge that?
Right.
I don't know. I don't read much. You read the New York Times far more than I do.
Well, I don't know about that. But
no, it's good. Well, it's good. It's good cannon fodder for us. Okay?
It's exactly good cannon fodder. But it is interesting that this case, this ruling, hardly any media coverage, and yet it's a very big ruling because essentially now the New York Times is going to have to essentially show that it was not driven by malice. I think New York Times is going to have great difficulties in showing that it wasn't motivated by malice and that he was doing bona fide reporting.
And it's just good. It'll stand as a precedent of how they've been doing their reporting for a very long time, particularly during the 2016 election cycle, and of course, all through the Trump presidency. It'll show you how they make the sausage, and it's going to be, and that's why we have the phrase, nobody wants to see how you make the sausage. It's pretty disgusting.
That's right. So yeah, very, very embarrassing. So, well, that's occasionally good news. So, we will of course maintain our laser-like focus on this lawsuit and on the doings of the New York Times, as the cannon fodder, as Peter says. So remember, we are on Rumble, and please look us up there. And if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.